I've been reading and watching videos on the OP-1 field, and I've noticed a general negative reaction towards it. Now, I've made a lot of videos using the OP-1, and a lot of the songs that I made on it, I've been very happy with. I would love to get an upgraded OP-1. For me, a better reverb, stereo, more tape machines are a great upgrade. But at the current asking price, it's a bit too rich for me. But that's just me. Teenage Engineering can raise their prices however much they want. It's not like they're holding my wallet hostage. I know it's not easy making hardware and selling hardware as a company for a living, especially if you're a small company like TE. So whether I agree or not on the pricing doesn't really matter. I do, however, want to talk about gear, how we think about gear, and maybe offer a perspective on how we see gear. I love gear. I sometimes lust for gear and sometimes I buy gear. But I don't talk about gear here on this channel. This is the first time. And the reason I don't talk about gear here is although it's central to the videos I make here, it's not central to the music I make. Let me clarify what that means. I think if I had no gear or very little gear to work with, I would still make music that I would be very happy with. And here's the thing. With gear, I don't think I would make better music. I think I would have a larger sonic palette to pull from, but I don't think that that's central to how I would create music. These days, with so many things being able to make so many sounds in so many ways, having a limited sonic palette isn't really a real issue. I don't want gear to be the focus of music making. I want the techniques of music making to be the focus of music making. What we should focus on is crafting emotional journeys for listeners, for anyone really who's willing to give us the privilege of their time and attention. And I think that's the important thing here. I'm always thinking, how can I craft this music to create an emotion in someone? And that emotion doesn't have to be this deep, all-encompassing film score emotion, you know? It can be something like making someone feel like dancing, or making someone groove with their 3-year-old daughter, or maybe just making someone laugh. All those are emotions as well. So I want to create a shift on how we think about creating music. From what we use to make the music to how we make the music. And I think that paradigm is moving from gear to technique. So instead of looking at gear so much and thinking that gear is the solution to creating better music, it's about technique and how we can use what we have to create better music. Let's look at gear as a tool to shape what we want. And in that way, we don't think of sounds as good or bad. We just think of sounds as different colors that we can use, whether it's useful for us in that moment, in that context, to create the feelings that we want. Some of us might go, you know what, I'm just creating music for myself and I'm just going to listen to it, and that's perfectly fine. But we need to be honest about it. I think sometimes we want our music to connect to someone, whether it's our spouse or whether it's our child or maybe it's our friend or bandmate. We want someone to feel that music that we do as well. And in that context, I think it's our responsibility to use our skills to create what we can. A small audience of one is still an audience to serve. And that means we are creating for someone other than ourselves. And if that's the honest truth, I think then we should focus on how we can learn more techniques to be able to craft those kind of experiences and emotions for other people to experience. And honestly, I think that's a really fun aspect as well. Sometimes that seems a bit scary because the responsibility is on us and we feel like there's a bit of pressure, but I don't think it's about that. I think if we take away us from the picture and think about how can we serve someone else with the music that we have, then I think it becomes a joyful experience of using what we have to try to play this game of creating emotions for someone else. If you have the money and space, go ahead and buy the gear. Gear can be a very useful tool and gear can be a very joyful experience as well. I think the important thing that I'm trying to highlight here is that if we focus not just on gear, but our minds on creating music that really reaches into people's feelings, then I think we can approach music in a more fun and healthy way. I know gear is fun. I look at me, I know gear is fun, and gas sometimes feels a little bit like falling in love. That feeling of newness and that feeling of lust is there. And I've done the hours and hours of research into a piece of gear that I wanted, imagining what it would do for me in my music making or my workflow. And ultimately, whenever I get a piece of gear, it doesn't really change that much how I create music or how I want to create an emotion for people. A piece of gear ultimately is just new sounds and workflows. Those are tools to shape what you need. Having a better sword doesn't make me a great swordsman, but it makes me feel cooler, and that in itself is fun. But ultimately, if I want to be a good swordsman, I have to learn the techniques, I've got to practice, I've got to make some mistakes along the way, and I think it's nothing to be too worried about. It's something to be enjoyed and something to celebrate and to have fun with. I think crafting music is fun. I think trying to make people feel an emotion is fun. I think trying to make something that makes people dance is fun, or laugh is fun. There's so many fun aspects to music, and I think we should embrace those aspects, the techniques, the methods, the music making itself, as opposed to being too focused on gear. And I of course know that I can fall into that hole as well. So I'm trying to constantly remind myself that it's ultimately about having fun crafting emotions. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I hope it's given you a new perspective on gear. I try to keep these things in mind because it makes me enjoy making music more and be less focused on collecting too much gear, and it sometimes can be a detriment as well. So I hope you continue having fun, and all the best making the music that you want.